Kawthar is now in the University of Manchester. That's where I graduated from. I would say, oh, we are like uni buddies, but she's new to it. So nah. She's not. She wasn't a Mancunian when I was a Mancunian. Different Mancunian times.
Different generations. I was back in Essex for my undergrad.
Oh, I did my master's in Essex.
Yeah, then I was in Goldsmith. There, here, so I've travelled about.
What, Goldsmiths? What's Goldsmiths?
Goldsmiths in New Cross in London. Goldsmith University of London. Have you not heard of it? Goldsmith
Yeah, I was going to say, Hameed, how do you not know?
I'm sorry. I'm not a university person. Like, I don't know. Why did you go to 3 unis? You went to Essex, Goldsmith, and then Manchester?
It's where the money is at and where the opportunity takes you. That's where I go.
So, to be a psychologist, do you have to do 3 degrees? Because Sumaira, you have like 16 as well.
Yeah, well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
My route was zigzag.
Yeah, my route was zigzag as well. But you have to do a professional doctorate in order to qualify as a counselling clinical health psychologist. So most of them, you do have to do a professional doctorate, but the journey to getting there is different for everybody. That's why some of us have masters, some don't. Some of us have this, some don't.
Yeah, you could do an undergrad, get some experience, and then get onto the doctorate.
Exactly.
Although it's more likely that you'd probably get a master's in between.
Yeah, because
it's not straightforward, is it, Kawthar?
Yeah, because it's very competitive. Essentially, what happens is on paper, it says, do an undergraduate in psychology, then get 2 years experience and get onto the doctorate. But most people's trajectory is not like that because it's so competitive. So most people end up doing other things along the way in order to get there.
I see. So you did your undergrad in Essex, then you did your master's in Goldsmith.
Yeah, I did my undergraduate in Essex, worked as a research assistant for 2 years, then I went to do my master's, then worked as a mental health advocate, like work with people sectioned under the Mental Health Act, then got onto my doctorate. Yeah, it is probably like a span of 10 years, but I would say it wasn't like back to back. It was like working, then do another course.
Is this how long it is for everybody doing?
No, I mean, for me, when I say 10 years, I was actually thinking about it the other day. I graduated from my undergrad in 2015. And by the time I formally graduate from my doctorate, it's probably going to be summer 2025. It's not like it was 10 years between me it was probably 6 years between me finishing my undergrad and getting on. But it's different for different people. Funny enough, I know clinical psychology, they have an alternative handbook and they have like the statistics there. And average, I think, is about like 3 to 5 years post finishing your undergrad. Some people is more, some people is less. But it's rare that people finish their undergrad and like immediately get onto the doctorate.
Yeah, I was going to say in my year, there was an 18% success rate. That has increased to about 24 or more because they've increased the funding for clinical psychology doctorates. But yeah, it's pretty competitive, and especially for ethnically minoritized or just minoritized individuals in general.
Definitely, because most of us come from backgrounds where we don't have any psychologist in the family. We don't know anybody who's a psychologist. So I think when I look back, in some ways, if I had known somebody or received mentorship earlier, I think my trajectory could have been shorter, even though I'm happy for my trajectory because I've learned a lot. But I think a lot of the times is also about who you know to guide you. Absolutely. Your uni and undergrad kind of gives you the path of like how to apply for these jobs that open the doors to becoming a psychologist. So I think a lot of people who are ethnic minorities have to figure that out themselves. And that is what, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, that leads me to the first question, because some people will be listening to the podcast and will not be seeing your face. Let's talk about your origin and identity before we go into why you went into psychology and what led you into psychology. First, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
I guess I would describe myself as a British Nigerian Muslim woman. I guess sometimes if I want to go deeper than Nigerian bit, I'll say a Yoruba woman as well. But yeah, that's how I'll describe myself.
British Nigerian Muslim woman. Yeah. And even deeper, because obviously there's a lot of different ethnic groups in Nigeria, Yoruba, Nigerian, British Muslim woman.
Yes, which is how I actually met you, Hameed, because I was going to a class to revive my Yoruba, me and my friend Camila, pre-COVID.
Yes. Cam.
Yes, Cam. Me and her, we were trekking about London trying to improve our Yoruba.
For those listening, I had met Kawthar years ago when a friend of mine and myself, we started a Nigerian language speakers club where professionals would come and just practice speaking their languages. And we had a Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa, and it was called the Earn Circle. It happened at the African Centre in Southwark. It was one once a month. I don't remember the exact date we did it, but that was stressful to run. And to be honest, I only did it because no one else was doing it. I'm not that crazy about languages, but I'm just like, why is no one doing this? And it's a nice space. I thought I would provide that, but I'm not the best at hosting because if people are not having a good time, I panic.
I can't lie, it never came across that way, you know. But
Really?
I always remember the food. I remember the pop-up. I remember the little snacks. And I felt like it was...
we had small chops.
Yeah, it was a good vibe. I remember we had like these quizzes and stuff. And, you know, like, I feel like you guys came across really well. It was really fun. That's how you were feeling, but it didn't come across that way to us. We were having a good time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, the friend that I was doing that with, Sumto, the one that was doing the Igbo part, he's the one that designed this t-shirt that you were talking about.
Nice.
This Yoko t-shirt. So Yoko is his brand, all about African heritage and being proud of it and all of that. That's why I'm always wearing his t-shirts when I'm doing this podcast. Yeah, that's how we met. Now, you having all this multiple identities. Come on, Sumaira, you're the identity expert. Throw some interesting questions about all these different identities. British, Nigerian, Yoruba, Muslim, woman.
I consider that like tricultural in terms of like the richness. Like myself, I always say I'm a Muslim. Even though I'm British, I think I identify more as a Londoner, an Indian by heritage, and like you said, a woman also. And we talk about the intersecting of these identities. I'm really interested in how we consolidate these identities too. So as a woman living in the West, as a Yoruba, British, Muslim woman, I'm just curious to know how you consolidate your identities, and has that changed over time?
Yeah, I think it's always been a bit of a struggle. I think when I was younger, it was probably more of a struggle. I think it's funny. Sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, the older I've become, the more I feel like Afrocentric I've become, the more I'm really curious about my African heritage. I remember a few years ago, I asked my mum, like, we need to be speaking in Yoruba more. Like, we're always speaking in English, or I'm responding in English. Like, push me to like speak Yoruba back to you. I think that maybe there's been more of a longing to like want to know more, to want to understand my heritage. And also I've been in the kind of intersections of all these identities. I think it's made me a very curious person, because I've always observing certain, let's say, family members or certain things. I'm thinking, okay, why is this normal, for example, in Nigerian culture to do this or behave this way? And in British culture, people don't do that. It's always made me curious, like, why do people interpret things in certain ways, especially as somebody working in mental health? Why do certain kind of, even the way mental health issues maybe manifest and how they look in certain cultures versus other cultures? I think it's made me a very curious person, and I really love that. I think if I had just grown up in a homogeneous society, then I don't think I would be as curious, because everything would just be, okay, this is how people generally behave in X society. But I'm constantly observing and reflecting and contrasting and comparing between cultures.
Yeah. So it's developed your critical lens as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like when you're speaking about the whys, and we're both in psychology, there's a lot of like, why do people do things? From what lens? But there is this theme, I think Hameed can agree, that the older we get, the more appreciation we have for our heritage identities.
Why is that, Sumaira?
Well, it's just a hypothesis, but I think when we're younger, we're trying to make sense of ourselves, and then we're living in this very individualistic Western society, and it seems quite contrast to our collectivist homes and maybe our religious identities. And we're just trying to fit in, and we're trying to make sense. And what tends to happen when you're trying to fit in is that you assimilate rather than integrate. You think it's cool to speak in English, and I don't need to know my mother tongue. Languages are not important. And I think as we get older, that changes from our life experiences, and maybe the reality that for a lot of us, we're treated as second-class citizens, or even third, or whatever it may be. And I think there's a lot more now, like growing up, social media, there's a lot more about your identity and being able to integrate that. Whereas I don't think in our times, without giving ages away, but you know, we've all completed our undergrads and masters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When I was younger, I just wanted to fit in. Like, I just wanted people to like me and to fit in. And if that meant forgoing one of my identities, so be it. Like, to be honest, I really just wanted to be accepted. I think that just through maturing, and also I think for me, literature has played a massive role. Like, I love reading, and reading certain authors that just really made me feel a bit more proud about who I am and my identity and my Blackness. And I think a lot of people have to go through that journey of learning to love themselves. And I think specifically for Black people as well, I think Blackness is something that even within within ethnic cultures, people try and distance themselves from. So I think learning to kind of that self-love journey is something that for me built character and made me think, actually, no, I don't agree with the kind of racist society generally that we live in, that kind of privileges whiteness over blackness. I was like, no, I don't believe in that. And I kind of want to stand up for that, even if it's just within myself, but then even more importantly, also within my work as well as a psychologist.